To find out what the road ahead looks like for the second in command, we'll now have to put up a spirited fight. We'll also look at the tyranny of numbers in the Senate. And just what that means for the deputy president, as well as, for any other institution, because this is a trying moment for all institutions, the parliament, the legislator, that is, as well as the executive and the judiciary. So we'll look at what this particular impeachment process means for this kind of institutions that are put up in place to deal with this kind of, special scenarios. So that is a conversation you do not want to miss that we'll be having later on in the show. Your feedback is highly welcomed across our feedback lines. Our SMS number as well is open. Tell us what you're thinking, and would love to sample your feedback just before we conclude this broadcast. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. All right, so let's take a look at the newspapers very briefly. What is making headlines this morning? The Standard newspaper reads, "Impeached." That is the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. So the DP was last night overwhelmingly impeached by the National Assembly in a historic motion despite his spirited defense and that of his closest allies on the floor of the House. And it is now up to the Senate to save or send him home. Now, they've extensively covered this from pages 2 to 7, which speaks of Gachagua makes spirited defense in the House. Well, he was able to appear, gave his version of what his defense team has been able to prepare. But did that work for the National Assembly members of Parliament? Well, no, because they still voted him out. Member of Parliament accuses DP of money laundering and graft. The 5.2 billion shillings worth of his property is still in question. Public participation reveals disparities. Well, according to the National Assembly, it was effective, and about 66% of members of the public wanted the deputy president out, or at least both the DP and the head of state out. Well, question is, did that reflect on what the people were saying during the public participation on Friday and on Saturday? Also, drama as political daggers have been drawn. Full list of how members of Parliament voted in the motion, as well as the fact that the clergy says impeachment is not a priority and they should focus on other emerging issues in the country. So that has been extensively covered on the newspapers. We'll be having an all-round conversation about this, the big shift by members of Parliament from opposition as well, who overwhelmingly voted for this particular impeachment motion. So what are they to gain? That's the big question that the public is asking as well. So MP accuses Gachagua and his sons of money laundering and graft. Results of public participation show disparities, also show low turnout in Mount Kenya. Political daggers drawn as House debates besiege Deputy President. Rigathi says he's learned from the best and that is his boss. Looking at the evidence he tabled at the floor of the National Assembly, well, much of what perhaps President William Ruto has been saying in public, which he says, is not very far from what he has been saying as well in terms of criticizing public servants, criticizing as well as cabinet officials. So Gachagua put case forward but failed to convince majority members of Parliament. But you may argue he convinced just 10 because 291 members of Parliament signed the motion. 281 members of Parliament voted for the motion. So is that a clear indication that perhaps, with the trend, is that something that is likely to happen in the Senate? So that is the headline on top of the Standard newspaper this morning. It also speaks of judges left out by Uhuru, awarded 126 million shillings. Judges left out by Uhuru, awarded 126 million shillings. That is the major win for 6 appellate court judges. Weldon Korir, Aggrey Muchelule, George Odunga, Joel Ngugi, Evans Makori, and Judy Omange, after they were each awarded 20 million shillings. This is, following former President William Ruto's decision to not appoint them to their respective positions. Airlines join bid to block Adani deal. The Kenya Association of Air Operators, a lobby group representing local carriers, opposes the handing over of Kenya's premier airport JKIA to Adani, saying any such engagement with a private operator should be done through a competitive bidding process. So Adani deal still raises questions. The 238 billion shillings worth deal that continues to raise eyebrows in the country. To the Daily Nation newspaper this morning, how Gachagua was cornered. How Gachagua was cornered. So, impeached, that is the headline. And on his way out is he, as the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's fate now lies with the Senate or the courts after President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga whipped their members in the National Assembly to vote for the impeachment motion against the DP. The embattled second in command, who put up a spirited fight for his job, even playing video clips of his boss in defense, is now praying for a miracle to keep him in office. Again, extensively covered from pages 2 to 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. 281 MPs vote to send Gachagua home. Parliament was on lockdown as MPs debated ouster motion. In fact, security was high around the precincts of Parliament. Also, Gachagua revisits pre-poll deals to defend his shareholding stance. Was that one of the biggest falling factor for him, the shareholding remarks, which, have equated him to tribal lines on the National Assembly as members of Parliament were debating. Mount Kenya's options amid push to oust DP. They are at a crossroad. 1, to either stick with Ruto. 2, to either abandon Ruto and pursue alternative alliances. Or 3, to form their own political party and target post-election coalition. Gachagua at odds with boss in police abductions. Also on matters eviction, says, he cannot just stand by and watch forceful evictions happen in the country. Rough ride for presidency if DP survives removal. Also, media, the new darling of the deputy president after years of bearing the nuisance tag. And that is the headline that is on, at least the stories that have been printed out concerning the impeachment on the Daily Nation. So we'll also have an extensive coverage of this as well with my guest in studio this morning, just to look at what options the deputy president now has, with the speaker now having, indicated that within 2 days, constitutionally, he's supposed to communicate the decision of the National Assembly to the Senate. So is the Senate the biggest player now on this particular impeachment motion by, members of Parliament? So that is the headline. Also, 126 million shillings payout to 6 judges. Uhuru rejected Justice's Win Award for discrimination. The grand heist at KNTC admits Kenya's lost 6.6 billion shillings in cooking oil scam. Patients still paying cash for services as SHIF chaos persists. Patients are still being asked to pay cash to hospitals as confusion over the Social Health Authority persists. The government is yet to honor the promise to refund those who paid for health services out of pocket during the SHA rollout this week. So those are your headlines this morning on the Daily Nation and on the Standard, largely to do with the Deputy President and that, I'd say, historic decision by the National Assembly to vote in favor of the impeachment motion against the DP. But as I said earlier, there's still a lifeline. So we'll be talking about that when we return after the break. Stay with us. That conversation returns. Your feedback is highly welcomed across our feedback lines. This broadcast is live on all streaming platforms. We'll be back shortly. Don't go anywhere.